It has been quite a while since I've taken a look at one of the animated recreations for lost episodes of Doctor Who. Well, let's fix that. The Abominable Snowmen. This is a second Doctor story. There is one surviving episode. I believe it is episode 2. It has gotten the animation treatment, which has been happening to lost Doctor Who stories for a while now. This one features Second Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria. This actually comes off the back of Tomb of the Cybermen and before Enemy of the World. And it's also quite good. I was a little nervous going in because it's a 6-parter, and it's not uncommon in Doctor Who for anything more than a 2-parter to have a bit that drags or for the pacing to feel, I don't know, a little forced maybe sometimes. This was actually pretty solid considering how limited the locations were. This kept a good pace, and it probably would have even worked a little bit better if I hadn't known which recurring villain who showed up later in the modern era has their introduction in this. And I am actually going to save that for a little bit of spoilers, because I would say if you're taking in classic era Doctor Who, better to watch this and not know what's coming. I think you'll get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. But before we get into that, so this obviously takes place in the Himalayan mountains, the traditional home of the Yeti, aka the Abominable Snowman. And the Doctor and Jamie and Victoria, they end up there, and there is a monastery of monks. And this gets us to the first advantage that happens with doing the animated recreations. While the circumstances as to why they have to be done isn't great, the fact that so many episodes are just flat out lost except for the audio, this is taking advantage of the opportunity, which is to visually fix the fact that the residents of the Himalayan monastery were all played by white English people. So, yeah. I'm sure there's probably some people who can make some argument that it's like, but they're not even looking like the actors anymore. Isn't that disrespectful? I mean, one could make a minor argument about that. My position on that would be it is no more disrespectful than the cross-racial casting that they did in the first damn place. And second of all, did you know any of these actors? I'm not trying to be dismissive, but if you want to know who they were, their voices are still there, and they still are credited as playing these characters in the credits of this and on IMDb and in the history books and everything else. They've got their credit. Let's not perpetuate the problem. This one, I'll mention on the animation quality. I'm not going to harp on the animation too much, but I will say that it's been a while since I've seen an animated recreation. I think the last one I saw was Shada. They've gotten a lot smoother. I mean, like, not flawless. This isn't Disney quality animation, but I remember it being a lot stiffer, a lot more flash animation before. It's gotten better. I like it. Now, I watched this on Tubi in the US, which meant it came with ads in it, which Tubi's usually okay with the ads because normally they just slot them in wherever the ads would have gone on the original airing of a thing, except Doctor Who wasn't designed to have ads, so they come in at awkward places. But that aside, Tubi unfortunately, I say unfortunately just to my preferences, unfortunately only has the full color animated recreation. Because I don't know what's on BBC iPlayer, but if you were to get this on Blu-ray, you would have the option to watch it full color or watch it in black and white, which I actually would have preferred, but that wasn't what I had access to. And the other thing that I had wondered about what they would do is that I think there are some effects that are probably definitely like improved, specifically around certain sort of glowing alien-ish effects, but the The Yetis themselves, oh, they look janky. They look so cheap and so janky. Not like cheap animation, but like clearly based off a very cheap design. And I love that. I love that they retained that. I think that is phenomenal. That made me very, very happy. So, like, while there are some alterations that were done as opposed, in terms of, doing some racially appropriate appearances for these characters that would not have been there in the original. I will say a nice upshot of the fact that it was an all English cast. Not that they might not have still done this, so they still could have, but I guess there were enough of them that didn't bother. Is no one's given a racist accent. Like they speak a little bit stiff and a little bit stifled, like in the way you would expect for someone who's not speaking their first language. Even though like the actors obviously they're English, the characters speaking English, but the idea was they were playing characters whose first language wasn't English. So it's a little stilted, but it's not, there's no comedy, awkward, forced accents, and there's no severely broken English. It's all proper English. It's just a little bit stilted in delivery in a way that actually kind of makes sense for the characters. So that's nice. There's also some interesting dynamics with some of the people going on. There is an actual character who is English, not just actor. A guy, Travers is the character, who's actually played by the father of the actor who plays Victoria, which that's kind of fun. He's fun. I like him. He's there looking for the Abominable Snowman. I must find this mysterious creature. And he's a little bit obsessive. He kind of starts out a bit antagonistic. He starts out like he's a little bit obsessive about it, and I think he's been out here a little bit too long looking. But one of the interesting things is that the dynamics of the characters are shifting. They are in flux, and that there are characters who seem to be in favor of or siding with the Doctor, as there's questions about, what are you doing here? Are you dangerous? There's this stuff going on. Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? Characters don't just pick a position on that and dig their heels in. A fair number of them change their positions over the course of multiple episodes. So there'll be one episode where a character is more and it's not just Travers, it's a couple of them. There'll be some episodes where a character is more antagonistic, but then something will realistically convince them that the position that they held was wrong. And so in the next episode, they'll actually be defending the opposite position of what they had before. And it made them feel like dynamic characters as opposed to just a one note. Just be this thing, be an obstacle, which it never does. And that's just cool. That's nice to see. There is some nice mystery, and there's a general creepiness to sort of what's going on. I am going to have to start getting into the spoilers because I need to talk about what it is that's behind all this. Now, this doesn't get revealed for a ways into it. And this is what I would consider spoilery. If you're interested in watching classic era Doctor Who and you are familiar with modern era and you don't know which villain shows up in this, don't look it up. Just watch it. It's good. Assuming that you like classic and you like the animated recreations. So, the Great Intelligence. This is his introduction. That thing's creepy. Like, the whole origin of this thing was that, 300 years ago, from when the story is taking place, a holy man was basically, projecting his mind out, onto an astral plane, out to the universe, and this thing latched onto him and has kept him alive for 300 years as it tries to create its own physical body that it can fully control. It's kind of cosmic horror-y. I didn't realize, I did know this was the first story the Great Intelligence appeared in. I didn't know that was his origin. That he just latched on to a guy who was having a spiritual experience. That's awful. That's great. That's awful. The look of I cannot, the number of syllables that are in this character's name, I am never going to keep them straight. But the character that is kind of being quasi-possessed by the Great Intelligence, more or less possessed, who is someone that the Doctor knew from when the Doctor himself had been here 300 years before. This might actually be one of the first times that it implies the Doctor himself has been here and is revisiting places he's gone before. I don't know for certain if this is the first time the show did this, but this is definitely one of the early times, and I do like when the show does that, provided they don't lean on it too excessively. But as an intermittent thing, I've always liked when the show has done that, because it gives an indication of the Doctor having a very vibrant life outside of what we see on the show. He obviously has time for all these other adventures. So that all these implied adventures can be mined by Big Finish for audio drama. If they haven't already done a story of the Doctor coming to this monastery for the 300 years ahead of when this is set, they will. I'm sure they will if they haven't already. But in any case, that is an aspect that I like to it. And I did look up some of the surviving like telesnaps. They definitely also revamped this guy who has been possessed, not just in terms of he looked more Anglican, but also like without going too far. He just looks a bit more zombified than would have probably even been possible with TV budget makeup at the time. So the animated thing does push it a little bit to sell that a little bit harder, but it's the kind of shift that I think works because it feels very much in the spirit of the intention of the original. It is the kind of thing that is tricky because if you improve the effects too much, like how much is this still the same thing? Like there are some classic era stuff. Like I have a DVD of The Time Warrior, which you can watch either with newer special effects for some of them or the original special effects. And generally I like to watch it with the original. There's nothing wrong with the new ones, but it can feel out of place sometimes. But all these kind of updates, they feel very much in the spirit of it, of how it would have originally been intended. Oh, one thing I want to note about the Great Intelligence, it's got this cave, and there's this very sickly green glow and sort of these like ethereal tendril things. I have no idea what that would have looked like in the original, but there's also this noise, this kind of droning hum, and classic era Doctor Who would rather frequently have either robots or machines or whatever kind of emit these kinds of noises. This one's bad. Like it's a tough thing to hear. So if you have audio sensitivities, it might be a bit to mute the TV for, to be honest. It's like I don't have audio sensibilities, and it wasn't pleasant. As far as the Doctor and the companions go, I like this team. I feel like Victoria has an undeserving reputation. Like I don't she's not talked about all that much. But my impression that I've gotten is that she kind of has a reputation like, oh, she's just a screamer. And she does scream a fair bit, but she's got agency too. Like the Doctor underestimates her, Jamie underestimates her. She's sometimes treated with kid gloves. And yes, when something scary happens, she does scream. But at the same time, like she wants to be involved. She's the one. The Doctor goes out, leaves Jamie and Victoria in the TARDIS, and Victoria's the one's like, "Come on, let's go outside." And Jamie's the one like, "Oh no!" But she's got some spunk to her. And later on, she actually pulls the prisoner pretends to be sick to escape thing, and like this is the first time I think I've ever seen that trick pulled in a movie or TV show where I was like, "Oh dang, that was actually convincing." I like no shade to the people who were supposed to be keeping an eye on you. I bought that. Like that's literally never happened. But I was like, oh dang. There's this great little exchange between her and the doctor where towards the end where the doctor's like, yeah, I think you should go and wait. And the TARDIS, and she says, well, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay right here. And the doctor just goes, I thought you might. So the doctor might still be a little bit condescending and be like, I think you should go back, but also is starting to realize, yeah, no, you're not. That's fine. So I feel like Victoria is a little bit of an underappreciated companion, or at least that's the impression I'm getting. Like, does she scream when the monster shows up? Yeah, she does. But that's not all she does. So a little more credit to her. And of course, the Doctor and Jamie have just wonderful chemistry. The two of them together, magical. Absolutely magical. I like Jamie as a companion in general, but sometimes it's not just who the companion is as a character, it's how they bounce off of the Doctor in specific. Because sometimes you get a companion that's a good character in and of themselves, and then their overall chemistry with the Doctor it's fine. I kind of feel that way about the first iteration of Romana, who I think she's very good in the part. But I think ultimately the second incarnation of Romana had better chemistry with Tom Baker. But then there's ones like, okay, not only are you a good character, but like you're so good bouncing off of this person. That's where you get Donna and the 10th Doctor. That's where you get Ace and the 7th Doctor. And that's where you get Jamie and the 2nd Doctor. I love those two. I love them together so much, and I will never ever get tired of it. It's so good. And again, overall, this was just way better than I was expecting it to be. Like, I didn't necessarily expect it to be bad, but this had a lot more going on than I thought it would. I think partially because, like, to write down the plot, just showing up at a monastery in the Himalayas, there's some Yetis. Turns out they're robots. There's a thing controlling them, and that kind of has hypnotic powers. We got to deal with that. Like, it's very simple on paper, but it is paced out across the 6 episodes quite well. Also, totally random thing. I've noted before that, like, prior to the actual codifying of the character of the Master with the 3rd Doctor's era, there would be characters, often villains, who would be referred to as Master, and like the guy who's possessed by the Great Intelligence, he just gets referred to by other monks as the Master. And just like the guy who was called the Master in the Mind Robber, he speaks with 2 voices, different reasons, because he's got the possessed thing going on. But like, that's weird that you recycled that idea and that title. Very odd. Oh, this was good. I had fun with this. The Abominable Snowman. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Do you like this animation? Would you have watched it in black and white? I would have if I could have. But whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like a share, a subscribe. They all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. Drum roll for my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lafula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B, Turok, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Gozer the Gozerian, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Geek Filter, Melinda Walters, Toby Jackson, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Bernabe Likes the Poodle, Robin Powell, T Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pau Barabajoggle, and Mira G. Thanks so much. Sticking around through the credits. Impressive. Well, you get the treat of knowing what my shirt says. That's it.